Alright guys, in this one I want to go over what I think is one of the best Warlock builds you can run right now in the game. The gameplay you're seeing in the background right now is from a solo 1600 Master Nightfall, and as you can see, this setup has no trouble destroying anything and keeping you alive. If you didn't see my video yesterday, I will link it in the top right, but with a change to one of the mods, it made this build extremely viable now, and you're just going to be able to punch everything on a Warlock. Typically that is the Titan's job, but the Warlocks also can do it, and in some ways Warlocks honestly is better, specifically for ad clear, where Titans is better for single target damage. Also know that Arc 3.0 Warlocks is definitely the most underwhelming and don't have a lot going for them in in-game content, but I honestly think this setup is that build that you were looking for, and it is one of the best setups you can play in the game. So if we just jump right over to the character, our main exotic we're going to be running is Winter's Guile. This has the exotic perk Warlord's Sigil. Eliminating enemies with melee attacks increases your melee damage. So this is obviously very similar to Worm God's Caress on the Titan. You get melee kills, you stack a lot of damage up. The cool thing with this is if you pair it with Lightning Surge, all the Lightning Surge kills you get in an AoE will actually give you multiple stacks. So it's very easy to get Tom-Sov stacks at once, and then you can proceed to take those Tom-Sov stacks and just destroy a champion, do a lot of damage to a boss, or continue just one-shotting every enemy in the game because you have just an insane amount of melee damage. Now obviously a really cool thing to pair with that is a shotgun with 1-2 punch. So when you shoot a shotgun and every pellet hits that enemy, it will also increase your melee damage, which will stack with Tom-Sov Warlord's Sigil. Pairing all together, like I said, just lets you instantly delete champions or just do an insane amount of damage to high health targets. And what's also really cool is that this also does apply to Lightning Surge as well, so you could just AoE like crazy, nothing will live even in harder in-game content, and it's also extremely fun to just jump in there and disintegrate everything. Now, if you don't want to use Winter's Guile, you don't have to. It does work extremely well with getting that damage bonus, but honestly, with most parts of the game, you don't need that extra damage except for, in-game content. So if you want to run something like Claw's card, get another melee, you could just have 100% up Tom with your Lightning Surge, or even run something like Karnstein Armlets and pairing with the Glaive now could be really cool because it's going to help out your survivability a lot. Also, Fallen Sunstar is a really great option as well, or even Crown of Tempest, but I do think overall Winter's Guile is for sure the go-to choice. But all right, let's get into the subclass. We're obviously going to be taking Lightning Surge so we can teleport to our AoE melee, but we're also going to be taking Electrostatic Mod. So whenever we defeat an enemy with our arc abilities or jolted or blinded enemies, we'll actually create an Onyx Trace, and then Onyx Traces will also amplify us, which is very, very nice. I do opt into taking Pulse Grenade with some of our mods. It just makes it really easy, and you're not really throwing your grenades that often, so just kind of take whatever grenades you want to. But I also am taking Chaos Reach because this is probably the best super you can run for PvE on Stormcaller, but I'm mainly just using this again to pair with some of my other mods. But it is good to just do a chunk of damage on a champion or a boss if you don't have a melee up. Now for fragments, I am running Spark of Resistance, so while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage and you get plus 10 strength. So since you're up in there and melee and everything anyway, this is going to make you a lot more tankier, which is really, really nice. I will also be taking Spark of Ion, so defeating a jolted target creates an Onyx Trace. So between this and Electrostatic Bond, you're going to have Onyx Traces everywhere. Lightning Surge actually will jolt enemies, which is really, really nice, and this will create your Onyx Traces to get your melee back as much as possible. I'm also going to be taking Spark of Amplitude, so rapidly defeating targets while you're amplified creates an orb of power. So since we're always going to be amplified with Electrostatic Mind, this is going to be really good for you and your teammates. Specifically when we get later to the mods, this is going to be extremely good for your survivability. Now, also running Spark of Feedback, so taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage and plus 10 resilience. Now this one you can kind of switch out if you want to. Since this is a very fast-paced build, lightning surging everywhere, you don't take melee damage that much, but if you are just using your normal melee, you will for sure take melee damage, which is really nice. So if you have Tom-Sov Warlord Sigil, take melee damage, you can obviously then run to a champion and just have even more damage, which is very, very nice. Again, you can swap this out for anything else if you want to, but I do like running this just to have some extra damage here and there. Now for weapons with this build, since we're mainly doing melee for everything, I just like taking things like Wish Ender. It has anti-barrier, which is really, really nice. You obviously need a 1-2 punch shotgun, but good thing Unstoppable Shotgun is a thing this season. You can also run any other combination you want to. Just make sure you have a 1-2 punch shotgun, and again, any heavy. If you're running a DPS scenario, obviously put a linear fusion on, but obviously a machine gun for ad clear is also really good. Just, it's very flexible. You can run whatever weapons you want to. Just remember 1-2 punch is a go-to though. Now for stat distribution, 100% take 100 resilience. You need that 40% damage reduction. Pairing that with Spark of Resistance, you'll be very, very tanky and you won't die as much when you're melee and everything. And I do go with 100 strength. You don't need 100 strength. I just like having it just in case, so I know I will get my melee back. But if you want to put it in anywhere else, you can, since your mods are going to be the main part of getting your melee energy back. But I just like throwing it in there again just to be safe, so I know I will always have my lightning surge up. So first things first, let's go over the helmet. I run melee well maker, so whenever I get a melee kill, I will actually spawn an elemental well that matches my subclass type. So now when I get a kill with lightning surge, I will spawn an arc elemental well. That is going to play extremely well, not only with getting your ability energy back, but with some of our other mods as well. Now, I also am running double hands on, so I gain bonus super energy on melee kills. Since our main playstyle of this build is to melee literally everything in the game, you will get a bunch of super energy back, which is going to be good with some of our other mods, and obviously if you just want to throw out chaos reach a lot. Now I'm going to take advantage of that elemental well by running elemental charge, so we can charge light by picking up an elemental well, and then if it matches my subclass type, it will actually give me 2 charge light charges, which is very important. But if it is just any other elemental well that, you know, your teammate makes or something, it will just give you 1 stack of charge light. Now for champion mods, I like to run unstoppable shotgun since we're always going to have a shotgun on, but you can actually run triple champion mods with this build, which we'll get into later. But again, you can just kind of swap these out with whatever you want to. Now I'm also going to be running heavy handed, so while charge light regain half your melee energy when you use a charge melee ability consuming 1 stack of charge light. This also has a secondary benefit since we're running a arc mod, so while surrounded by multiple combatants, defeating a combatant with a fusion rifle, shotgun, sidearm, or submachine gun adds ammo for that weapon to your reserves. So obviously that's really good since we are using a shotgun, but the main part is when you're charged light, you regain half your melee energy consuming 1 stack of charged light. So before, this did not work until one of the most recent hotfixes, but now when you get a melee kill, you will spawn an arc elemental well that you can then pick up and get 2 stacks of charged light. Then that melee will regen half of your melee energy, which is extremely strong. And since you probably got a melee kill after you regen half that melee energy, you will get another elemental well to spawn, and you just have infinite heavy-handed. It's on a constant loop. Just make sure you pick your elemental wells up, and you literally will always have heavy-handed proc, and you always will get half that melee energy back every single time you use your melee ability. I cannot stress how strong this is. It is ridiculously broken with this build, and it just lets you pull off some crazy combinations. Now for other mods, I am running 1-2 finisher, so finishers restore my melee ability. This is what I was talking about when using my super energy, because this does use 1/6 of your super energy, but whenever you just get a finisher, you will actually get your melee ability back, which is really nice if you ever in a pinch where you need to get a melee ability, because again, your super doesn't do an extreme amount with this build, but getting that melee back is very important. Then talking about the champion mods, I'm running surge detonator, so my arc grenades can actually stun overload champions. With this, you can actually run triple champion mods, and again, that's why I use pulse grenade, because it's really easy to just throw it on them. It just continuously sits there, can actually stun multiple people instead of just having a one and done grenade. And if you take a look at our arm skin, you can obviously put on something like a anti-barrier scout rifle, and now you have unstoppable, anti-barrier, and overloads. Again, you can swap them out whatever in-game content you're doing, and also overload in general actually reduces the damage of target, so just throwing your grenade on a boss for some extra damage and reducing its damage is actually very good too. Now we'll also be running down off a well, so this is actually going to make my elemental well mods that create elemental well mods stack. Although I'm not going to be using 2 melee well makers, I'm only going to use 1, but this mod will essentially just give you an additional one. So instead of getting 1 arc elemental well when I get a melee kill, now I will spawn 2, which again is really good for getting your ability energy back alongside your ionic traces that you're going to be spawning all the time, and getting half your melee energy back with heavy-handed. You're pretty much always going to have 100% uptime on your melee, and if you don't, you also have 1-2 finisher just in case to get it back. If you want to throw in a weapon with Pugilist, you could to get some melee regeneration back, or if you want to run Monte Carlo, you could do that as well, and just to make sure you have your melee back again 24/7. Now I'm also going to be running double recuperation, so whenever I pick up an orb of power, I will actually replenish some health. Again, if you remember one of our fragments, since we're going to be making orbs, since we're amplified all the time, we're going to be picking these orbs up for our survivability with 100 resilience and spark of resistance. You'll just have health coming back like crazy and a bunch of damage reduction. Then for our final mod, I'm actually going to be running Well of Striking, so picking up an arc elemental will grant you additional melee energy. Then multiple copies of this mod can stack, but we're only going to be using 1, so now those double arc elemental wells I'm making, I will get even more melee energy alongside the ionic traces, and this will help you have that playstyle of 100% uptime on your lightning surge. Now you might be asking, why am I not taking Well of Ions? Because this makes it when you pick up an arc elemental well, it increases your melee damage. From my testing, this does not actually increase the damage of lightning surge. This will increase the damage of your normal melee, which can work really well with this build. And if you want to take this over Wall of Striking, you can if you are playing into just your normal melee a lot, because obviously if you get a lightning surge kill, you'll get ×5 of the Winter's Guile, and you will also spawn an arc elemental well, which you can then pick up and make your normal melee do even more damage. That can be very good, but I like to play into the fact of just literally spamming lightning surge everywhere, and that is what helps out with this. But again, if you want to swap it out with a well of ions, you could, but just know this will not actually increase the damage of lightning surge, but it will for your normal melee ability. I'm not sure why it doesn't increase lightning surge. I wish it was coded differently, but for my testing, and I could be wrong, it did not seem like it actually increased it. But that's pretty much going to do it for all the mods. Just as a rundown really quick, again, you're going to get a melee kill to spawn a well. You're actually going to spawn 2 wells. You'll get charged light when you pick those wells up. You're going to get even more melee energy back because you're running well of striking, but if you want to change it out for well ions, you can. And also, since you're charged light, you'll have heavy handed proc 24/7, which means you get half your energy back all the time. You get a bunch of energy back from your ionic traces, your elemental wells, and you can have 100% uptime on your melee. You also do have access to all 3 champion mods for in-game content, and if you ever need to get a finisher off, you can use some of your super to get your melee back, which is really, really nice. And also recuperation plus 100 resilience alongside spark resistance is going to be your survivability of the build. And again, I like running 100 strength, but you can run something else if you want to, just to make sure you get that melee up. And your weapons are very flexible. Just make sure you have a 1-2 punch shotgun. So I hope I explained that well. If you guys have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the build as well. I will have a dim link to this build in the description below if you guys would like to try it out for yourself. I seriously think you guys are going to enjoy this, and I seriously think this is a very strong Arc 3.0 Warlock build if you do want to take it into in-game, and I really hope you all give it a fair shot. But anyway, that's going to do it all for me. If you guys did enjoy this and want to see more content just like it, consider subscribing, drop a like, and turn those notifications on. Also, if you'd like to join my Discord or follow me on any of my socials, all of that will be linked in the description as well. But I just want you to know that watching this video is way more than enough. Every single bit of support from y'all is truly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and have a great day. Peace.